Hey, welcome back, friends. This is Richard from Lost Arts Radio. We're here with Dr. Gabriel Cousens and ready to talk about some deep issues in the world today, coming down to depression and how you deal with the problems in the human condition and how they can be solved instead of avoided. And we've just got a few minutes to talk, so we'll go right to Gabriel. And welcome and thanks for being here, Dr. Cousens. Nice to see you.
Okay. I welcome everybody with love. We'll start with the opening prayer. Bishibikud Kudashabrihu Ushinate Bi'il Imulaya Chabika Pavavke Mudasham Shem Kosrael Kolam Amen. So that's about merging the heavens and the earth into the oneness, which is the key here, which is very, very important to do. So that's what we're going to do, but I always like to start with a little bit of dance to open up the heart. So we're going to dance a little bit for 3 minutes, meditate for a minute or two, and then go into discussing. I wrote a book called Depression Free for Life about 20 years ago, and I'm just going to update it a little bit as we talk about that, because this is a very important topic. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, let's just sit quietly for a second, meditate a little bit, and if you feel like it, you can repeat. The easy way to meditate is repeat a mantra. This is the name of God as grace. Yod on the in-breath, He on the out-breath. Wa on the in-breath, He on the out-breath. Yod from the base of the heart, He out. Wa up to the third eye, and He out, merging the heart and the mind. So we'll do that for a few minutes. just to get ourselves centered again. Okay. Yo. We'll slowly come out of meditation and get right to the point. So, depression is complicated. Many causes. As I said in my book, Depression Free for Life, there's multiple causes. You could have a endocrine imbalance. A common cause of depression is hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. Well, what I learned, first as a psychiatrist, but then I saw that many people, when they fix their blood sugar or their diabetes, because that's another cause of depression, their depression went away. So it's like that was a big wake-up call for me to see that this is treatable. Now, there are also mental causes of depression. It isn't all just physiological or endocrine. And today we have a new kind of problem called screen time. Computers, cell phones. And there was one study where they took 125 quote healthy college students, and they found that when students reduced their screen time, they felt less stressed, they slept better, and had fewer symptoms of depression. And it just generally felt better. So we have this weird scientific and cultural thing that computer screen time and spending time on your cell phone actually contributes to the frequency of depression. And within just a few weeks, many of their symptoms improved when they when they decreased the screen time. And there's all kinds of reasons people end up getting they compare their lives to the ideal life that kind of gets put up screen time. Seeing other people happy when you're not kind of can make it worse. There's an interesting CDC study in 2021. So my work initially, Depression Food Life, was done in the 1990s. It was a while ago, And they found that teenagers who spent 4 or more hours a day on the screens were twice as likely to show symptoms of anxiety and depression. Now, that's quite a statement compared to people who had less screen time. So basically, 26% reported depression symptoms compared to only 9.5% of teens who spent less than 9.5 hours on the screen. And of course, more time in nature is also a really good thing. Now, so that's a newer issue, that literally your screen time was a problem, particularly more than 4 hours is what they identified. Now, junk food also really contributes to it. And again, we're just talking about junk food. I'm not talking about high sugar food, although it overlaps. Because I've already pointed out that low blood sugar comes from high sugar, eating a lot of high sugar food, a lot of junk food. But just eating junk food itself seems to be a problem. And then people don't really get the nutrients they need, and particularly the B vitamins and vitamin D all seriously contribute. Magnesium is a cofactor in many of the nerve transport mechanisms and in the building of neurotransmitters. B vitamins are very important, particularly B1, B3, and B6. The whole work of orthomolecular psychiatry, which started in the 70s, was based on is simple. Give people B3, B6, folic acid, and B12, and you heal 50% of the people. Okay, so and then add the vitamin D, so I'm going to say vitamin C. So, but B and D are the big players. So a lot of people don't get sufficient B and D. It's even really hard to get it from your diet. That certainly makes it better to have a healthy diet with healthy foods, but the supplementation seems to be significant. Now, I mentioned vitamin B. The vitamin D is a really, really important one that leads to depression, especially in older adults. And vitamin D can also, and low vitamin D can also decrease testosterone. And adequate testosterone is very important, particularly in men, but also women, for proper neurotransmitters and mood regulations. Now, some people, we talk about psychotherapy, cognitive behavior therapy. There's just different things out there. They all really do help the situation. Not everybody kind of, gets it, but having that little bit of help appears to make a difference. Now, I use a lot of herbs in the treatment. As I mentioned, the B vitamins, vitamin E, I mentioned vitamin C, vitamin D, B3, B6, B12, all do make a difference in creating a healthy physiology that tends to eliminate depression. Now, there's certain herbs that have been known to help. One is St. John's wort. Another one is called golden root. And there's borage, and there's lavender. It's nice that people just put lavender on their lavender oil on their sheets. Saffron, which is a little expensive, but it's very good for depression. And people have known that for literally thousands of years. Other ones that are really good are Panax ginseng, ginkgo biloba. Elephants really like ginkgo biloba. I don't know how much depression elephants have, but they like it. Valerian root, crataegus, which is also very, very good for the heart, is really, really good. Meditation has been shown to be very helpful in treating depression. And that's another thing that makes a difference. A lot of systems, talk about mindfulness meditation because it's the least religious, and it works. But any meditation you do is serious. Will reduce depression. And what it also does is it tends to stimulate the neurotransmitter functions. Another major cause of depression is sleep deprivation. So when I look at all the research out there, if you can average around 7 hours of sleep at night, and you get to bed at a reasonable hour by like 11, some people say by 10, that goes a long way for preventing depression. And people, there was a study with like 29,000 people, and they found that when people got enough sleep, they're 1.5 times less likely to get depressed. Another is exercise. And actually, when I look at the whole thing, meditation and exercise are probably the two most important things in terms of preventing depression, because as exercise gets all the hormones going, and there are different kinds. You have the hatha yoga type exercise, you have walking, and you have jogging. Walking is one of the better ones. Jogging can be really hard on your shins. There's a meta-analysis of 15 studies with over 190,000 adults, okay? And they found that even small amounts of physical activity could help lower the risk of depression. So that's another really important one. Now, another thing that's been in the literature more recently is the importance of healthy and supportive relationships. The rate of depression among people who have healthy relationships versus people who are kind of alone, it's about 50%. And so the data suggests like 45% of women who are in a relationship and don't have the social support will get depression. So it's a very real factor. Depression can really be a sign of being disconnected. Now, when you're in a relationship, you're not having that disconnected feeling. Now, the 10th little health practice is, if nothing else is really working, you may want to consider changing your environment. There was research done in England where they found that electromagnetic fields were really disrupting and giving people depression. Well, sometimes you move out of that field and that depression goes away. So actually examining your environment and changing it can make a big difference in treating depression. So I'm giving you a series of things. There's one more thing I want to point out. Is that according to NIH research, National Institute of Health, I didn't say mental health, just health, people who kind of follow these things, these 10 points, had significantly overall less depression and anxiety. And they kind of go together a little bit. So, eat a healthy diet and with very high in B vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin E. That's an orthomolecular approach that started more in the 50s also. And then you want to exercise. That really does it ups all your neurotransmitters. You want to meditate. It ups all your neurotransmitters and actually literally creates a positive brain change. Okay, we want to be around optimistic people. We want to be in loving relationships. That makes a really big difference in the degree of depression that people experience. Okay, we want an uplifting, healthy environment. We want to eat food that is not junk food and actually builds the strength of your psyche. Now, some research has shown that when we apply all these things, we actually get better results than when they use anti-depression medications. I've done some research myself in a mental hospital, and we took everybody off all their medications, and about 50% of the people significantly improved enough that they could leave the hospital. So that's a really important piece in this picture, because we're talking about people who are really more seriously depressed. And if you do get away from the psychotropics, which can cause depression, and balance people's blood sugars and treat their diabetes, that's what we call orthomolecular psychiatry, and get people in a good environment, a supportive environment, a loving environment, and a relationship if possible, you go a long way. And healthy food. Did a study 1973 where we were kids, and we discovered that lead poisoning was leading to really poor school performance and increased depression. So kids get that lead poisoning from a variety of foods that have been contaminated, different containers, this, that, and the other thing. So, because we also have trouble with aluminum and arsenic, and as well as lead, cadmium, and mercury, all of which have been associated at some level with our lifestyle and with the vaccinations that happen. So we have some really, really solid evidence that our lifestyle significantly can affect our our tendency to get depressed, and can be very therapeutic when applied correctly to people who are depressed. So there's real positive hope for people with depression, because when you look at all these factors, there may be some really breakthrough areas. And yet there are people who are mentally depressed, and we need to do some psychotherapy with them and other therapy techniques. So that also exists. I'm not saying depression doesn't exist, menopause can cause depression. I've treated a variety of women in menopause who are depressed, and almost all the time they are able to recover. There's also what I call postpartum depression. And that's a slightly different thing. And we get about, and this is not an exaggeration, 100% success rate within 3 weeks, because that postpartum depression is from a DHA deficiency that gets caused through the pregnancy. So we have to keep our eyes open and look at all the possibilities that go on that can cause depression, rather than just trying to treat it with some psychotropic drugs, which doesn't particularly work, and in the long run does not give the overall positive results of a kind of a holistic approach to depression. I hope that gives you some idea. Richard, I'm going to call you in and see what you have to say.
Important information, Gabriel, as always, and a couple of questions or comments that I had. One is the similarity and difference between synthetic and natural vitamin D, sunlight, and cholecalciferol. And one of the questions that's come up that's very legitimate about that is the confusion that originates because cholecalciferol is a primary ingredient in rodent poison. And that's been debunked, and I checked it out.
Primary ingredient in rodent poison?
Yeah. And it's been said that that's just made up complaint to get people not to take vitamins. So I called Decon Rat Poison Company, and they said, yes, the active ingredient in their rat poison is cholecalciferol, and it takes the vitamin D out of the bones and puts it in the blood and poisons the rat. So it needs to be addressed and not just, debunked, because it's a real concern. And cholecalciferol is not identical to sunlight. So I wanted to get your comments on it.
Well, I think you're right. I must admit, I'm not familiar with that particular detail about the cholecalciferol, but it makes perfect sense. So it's always better to use the natural vitamin Ds. Natural vitamins, period. Because the synthetics can have these weird situations, like what you just described. It's very interesting. You brought that up.
Yeah, apparently humans originated on this planet in semi-tropical conditions where they didn't have a problem with sunlight, and they were designed to use it all the time. And the skin pigment got lighter or darker depending on whether they needed more or less. And then with technology, they moved into cold areas where they were deficient in sunlight, and it started to cause problems.
Yeah, that's good. And when people don't get enough sunlight, they definitely can get depressed. That's another cause of depression.
So somebody needs to look into this cholecalciferol issue and really get it clear.
Okay, yeah.
Anybody that wants to. I noticed that the Decon Rat Poison Company has a medical division, and I talked to them, and they're the ones that confirmed that was the active ingredient.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
The other comment I had is on Wi-Fi. I think the electromagnetic fields are doing all kinds of damage.
Yeah, there's no question about it, and that's what I'm saying. And we have the screen time turns out to be a much bigger deal than what we realize. And also EMF fields, they did some research in England with Vodafone. It was a big building, and they noticed a lot of depression happening with the people in the building, and they just saw how much people were being radiated when they took them out of that field, and they were able to heal.
Right. So what is it doing to sit in Wi-Fi all the time? So many people are exposed to.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to see this years from now. But some of the Wi-Fi thing is they're starting to address it a little.
Right. So even if you get Wi-Fi out of your house, there's two sources that are remaining. One is these satellites that are increasingly spraying the world with Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah, right.
And the other one is that the computer itself generates a form of Wi-Fi when it's looking for the signal. And that can be turned off if you know how to do it.
Yeah. So we really have lots of causes of depression, and we need to look at it rather than just throw a psychotropic at it. That's the key here.
Right.
So I think, I hope people have an overview of what we've created for you so you can really begin to think about it and protect yourself. So I'm going to bless everybody that we look at it closely and not think your depression is just there's some intrapsychic problem, or you need just some drug. But let's look at our total situation and do the best we can to get that corrected. So blessings to everyone with that.
Thank you, Gabriel. Important information that can be acted on.
Yeah. Okay. It's good. Blessings to you. Thank you, Doug, for being behind the scenes.
Yeah, and thank you to Doug for educating me on the way to turn off the computer Wi-Fi too. I encourage everybody to learn about that. Make your environment as healthy as possible.
Yes.
And drcousens.com for all the programs there. See you here next time. Have a good week, and we'll see you then. Take care.
Yeah, good.